This is supposed to be a serious podcast.
Oh, it's real serious.
Yeah, I noticed.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a real treat today. Welcome to BeerNet Radio. I'm your host, Harry Schuhmacher, and we have Geoff Westapher here, Geoff, I don't even know how many years we've been friends, but you've been in the beer industry forever. Moses was bringing tablets down. So, you're affiliated with Altstadt now, but I want to hear, how you got in the beer business, where you ended up, and how you're here now.
Well, actually, I've been in the industry for 55 years.
55.
Yeah, which actually covers the way it fell together 7 decades. I went to college at Tech, and after my freshman year, I was looking for a summer job. And so I called my father, and he told me that he thought the Jack's Beer Distributor, Jackson's Brewing Company, in Dallas was looking for summer help. So I got back that next morning and called Jack's, and they were already full of summer help. But they said the new beer in town might have some openings. So I called them. They said, come on down. I went down there. The next day, I started at Coors Willowbrook, and then I spent the summers working on a beer truck at Willowbrook during college. So that's how I started. And, by the end of the second year on the truck, I was a finance major in school. I was thinking about what to do after school, finishing college, and the beer industry interested me. And I got to the point where I decided, I'm going to see if at some point I can't buy a beer distributorship, work my way to it. So I started the long process or progression until I got to the point where I could finally get around to buying one.
And which one was that? Is that Longview?
No, actually, it was, almost 10 years later, I bought, it was the old Charbonneau Distributing in the Valley, which was the 7th largest Schlitz distributor in the world, and I took it over in the spring of 1981. I bought the wrong brand in the wrong market at the wrong time, and other than that, it was a pretty good experience.
So, for people who don't know, Schlitz had a crazy high market share in Texas at the time.
It was over 40.
Over 40%. Yeah. But it crashed really fast.
And quick, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you attribute that to?
From the brewery standpoint, it was, Bob Uline, who was the CEO, if you will, who was running it. He unexpectedly passed away. And there was no succession plan after that. And then the sales prevention department took over the running of the brewery, which
sales prevention department.
The accountants.
Yeah.
It was a public company, and they decided to speed up the process of the brewing process. And then they put some, I don't know what it was. It changed the formula of the brewery of the liquid. Liquid changed. End of the beer. That's basically it started the downfall of it.
I think younger listeners don't even know that story, and it really is probably the biggest loss, maybe other than Bud Light last year, but the biggest loss in market share so quickly.
How to kill $1 billion business.
Yeah.
Is what it was.
Right.
It was a Harvard case study for a while.
Yeah. Right. And you showed me this price list. Now, when is this from?
Well,
1971. Holy shit.
Yeah, my first beer tickets.
Wow.
Look at those prices.
That is amazing.
We would literally go years without a price increase, and when we had a price increase, believe it or not, it was 10 cents. And we were scared to death that it was going to backfire on us.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, 10 cents a case.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a case of beer, folks, for $4.21.
PTR.
PTR. Yeah. That's that's a PTR, not retail or wholesale. Okay, so and then if you get 2 cases, it goes to $8.42. So you don't make any discount. That's just double the price.
Right.
Yeah, it just keeps going where you triple it and you get the same price. That's awesome. That's the way to sell beer.
Well, it was simple back then.
Right. And so, and then you moved to Warsteiner. So,
Well, that was later down the road, yeah.
tell me about your time down there.
At Warsteiner?
Yeah. Or no, let's go. Weren't you with Southern?
Glazers,
You were with Glaziers.
yeah.
That's right.
When they made the effort to get into the beer industry.
Right.
I started as a state manager and helped roll out New Belgium in Texas, was my first job with Glazers part of it. And then
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Glazers, and I kind of refer to this, we took a 750,000 case brand and made it a 500,000 case brand without any effort whatsoever with it. I'm serious. That's what we did with it.
Right.
And then I became a corporate director of malt beverages, and that was the time when we started buying beer distributorships. And Glazers got into the industry. We bought the operation in Waco, and then we bought, like you mentioned the other day, eventually we bought Neil Runnels down in the valley with it. We bought El Paso, the Coors and Miller operation in El Paso, and we bought one in Iowa. I started with 30 million in sales. When I left, it was 300 million in sales at that time.
Wow.
And much bigger now.
Yeah. I mean, they have San Antonio now.
Yeah, I know.
This market, which I think is their biggest market.
It is.
But, and then you went to Warsteiner, right? Or am I skipping beats?
No, in 2006. I
Okay.
went to Warsteiner, yeah.
And how was that? How was that working for like a second tier importer? I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but
Actually, it was a really good experience for me.
No.
I mean, I had we were very successful with it. The imported agency had, up to that time, had never made any money. And it was on purpose to a certain degree, because when they first started, the Deutsche Mark was the German monetary, what they used. And it was 0.8 to 1. So it was advantageous to invest in the U.S. because of the exchange rate.
right.
So they heavily invested, didn't make a whole lot of money on it. And so when I came on board, by now it's now the euro. And at this point it was 1.5 to 1. So it was totally reversed.
Right.
So the pressure was I had a massive long-term liability to the brewery. And my focus per the brewery was to not only build the brand, but help pay down some of that long-term debt, which I was able to do in the first couple of years with it. And we made a lot of headway. Unfortunately, Albert Cromer, the 8th generation owner, got cancer. And he had to leave the business for health reasons. He eventually passed away a year or two later. His youngest daughter, he didn't have any sons. His youngest daughter took over the business. She really wasn't quite prepared at that point to take the business. So again, the sales prevention department became involved in the business, and they decided that the exchange rate was the primary focus of theirs, and so they gave me a challenge, and they wanted to raise the price points, pricing by 4 price points at the time. And we had just come off great successful year. You know, we made a lot of money, we drove the market, had increases, we were selling about 130,000 plus hectoliters of beer and growing across the country. So I told the brewery that if you do this, you're going to lose 40% of your U.S. business. They did it. We reduced staff at their insistence, and I was wrong. We didn't lose 40. We lost 39% of the U.S. business.
So they wanted to bleed it. I mean,
they wanted to bleed it.
Well.
And then 6 months later, about the head of controlling came to visit me, and this is the only time I can ever recall in my entire business with Germans, he admitted that they'd made a mistake. And he actually asked me to go get it back. And I said, I don't think Beck's or any of the other German beers are going to let us just give you the volume back. And of course his comment was, well, we need to communicate. And I said, no, we communicate fine. You just need to listen. That's what I told him.
Yeah. Right.
So that was kind of, how it all ended up.
Yeah.
And the thing I enjoyed about the Germans, I could go over there and sit in a board meeting all day long, and we would argue from breakfast until dinner. Then we'd go and we'd drink beer, and we'd be best of friends. And then the next morning we start over again. Now in the U.S. you could do the same thing, but after dinner you get sued. That's the difference. Right. With the Germans you drink beer, right. But with the Americans you get sued.
Oh man, that is funny. We need to eat our own dog food. You know,
right?
You need to drink the beer.
Yeah,
that's great. Altstadt, tell me about that. In fact, do we have a couple we can crack?
Yeah, they're right over here. Yeah,
I have a Swiss. One. I keep this.
Oh, there you go.
Everywhere. Is it? It's this one.
Yes.
Here, let me see your bottle.
And how long you been in the industry now?
Hush your mouth. I know how to do this. It's just been a while since I love a good Schwartz beer. Well, you know what? Happy holidays to you. It's starting.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that good?
That's good and fresh.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm in Germany again. So how did you end up with Altstadt? Because, and this is kind of a cool story because, you know, say a little, let's talk about a little bit about who the Altstadt people are and how they ended up in Central Texas.
I left the corporate beer world in 2012. I was affiliated with Kronbacher, and I left them never to return to the corporate beer world. And so over the next couple of years, I went back into consulting, and I did some court cases, expert witness cases, brand evaluation cases, and so forth. Got to the point where I ended up...
Will you pull that mic just a little closer to you? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
You're perfect.
Teaching at Portland State, in their craft brewing school, I talked about the business side of it. I did that for a couple of years. Well, the community school system in Dallas was thinking about doing that in the 2-year degree program. And Peter Beckler, the brewmaster, former brewmaster at Miller Coors in Fort Worth, was teaching a journeyman breweries class. And so the school's idea was to put the two of us together and do an associate's degree program for him that we would do. He do the brewing, I do the business side of it, right? So Peter and I got together and we got to talking about this. And then Peter said, look, I got involved in this project down in Fredericksburg, Texas, with the Scripps family, that building a brewery, and he said, I need you to help me with the business side of the business. So he connected me with William Scripps a month later. This is in 2015. And so late that fall, I got involved with them to help them put together the internal side of the business, which is distributor appointments, contracts, pricing, all the legal pieces of it, licensing, all that kind of stuff. What's the thing? Right. So it started off as a 7-month project, and now it's 9 years later, and I'm still advising them and consulting with them.
Right.
9 years later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And, the Scripps is a newspaper family and out of California, I think, or. Well, whatever. Yeah, I remember you invited me to the brewery at their grand opening, right. And it was I was blown away. It really is an amazing property, kind of in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Fredericksburg is a cottage destination for the hill country, but
well, William had gone to Europe and lived in Paris for 2 years, and while he was in Europe, he traveled around and he studied beer.
Yeah.
Germans, Belgians, English, all that. So he comes back after 2 years and gets with his father, because they both lived in Fredericksburg and grew up there. Dad, we ought to build a brewery.
Yeah.
And Dad said, that's the best idea you've ever had. So they went out and found that property, 130 some odd acres of land right there on the highway, purchased it, and then started building the brewery.
Right.
And it was going to start out as a small one, and then it ended up much bigger now. And so 9 years later, Altstadt now is the 7th largest Texas brewed craft brewer in the state. And when you throw in all the nationals, we're the 16th largest, and we've done it in less than 9 years.
Wow.
And we're growing. We're
Yeah.
one of the few of the brands not named New Belgium that's up. I mean,
Really?
we're up for the year, not only in depletions, but in shipments
And is it only Texas sold?
at the moment, but we're fixing to open up Ohio. Next
Why
month.
Ohio?
Well, because the Scripps are located, their bases in downtown Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, then you have the brewing history of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Then you have the German heritage of Cincinnati. And the fact that you probably may remember this, Warsteiner used to be headquartered there, and I spent a lot of time in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have the AB network is going to be distributing the product. For us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And is it mostly AB network here?
Well, we started off with the Red Network.
Yeah.
And we tried to go with the Red Network where we could, but in some cases we didn't have that option, so we got a couple of Miller Coors houses right now.
Okay. Is it mostly bottles and draft?
Well, we started originally with bottles and kegs, and you'll find this interesting. I had no idea what the mix would be. So instead of buying cooperage, we leased it at the time.
Yeah.
And we went into market with like a 90-10. We thought it'd be 90% bottles, 10% kegs. Turned out to be 60-40, which really blew us away. And so we just started with the bottles. And, of course, HEB gave us 105 mandated stores to start with. Now, understand, when we went to HEB, we had no name, no liquid, nothing. Because what we started with, we built the brewery first, and then 2 years later, they finished the brew pub and the restaurant. So they actually wanted to take an unknown product to market first with
Right.
it when we did it. And
Right.
we used, HEB was the biggest supporter, but it was supported by a massive in-store sampling program that was funded by the brewery.
Right.
And that's how we
Okay.
got the name out on the street with
Right.
it
And you knew Rusty probably already.
for years.
Yeah.
You know,
And yeah, he's great because if you're solid, then he'll give you a chance. You know.
well, he came out and he saw, like you did, he saw the brewery itself, and
Yeah.
he saw the fact that we had 2 labs, and it was equipped on the same level as a Miller Coors or a Budweiser brewery with equipment. And I looked at him and I said, you will never, if you remember, this was a time when craft beers were blowing up in stores, you know.
Right.
And I said, you will never have a QA problem with Altstadt, and he's never had a QA problem. Nobody's ever had a QA problem with Altstadt.
Right. Yeah. It is an impressive brewery. I mean, they spared no expense.
No expense.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Geoff, the beer industry just overall has been really soft in the last 2 years. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on
Well,
it
let's hear 'em.
right now. You know, well, they could get run over by all the distributors of the world on it. My personal feeling, this is my personal feeling, I'm not an employee of Allstott, obviously, so I only speak from my perspective on it. In my classes, what I did was to diagram how the industry works. And I used the diagram of an old hourglass, where you have a bowl at the top, you fill it full of sand, and then it goes through a neck, and the sand goes to the bottom. And I would tell the students that the top is the manufacturer or the brewer, and the very bottom is the retailer. And the idea is to get the sand, the beer, if you will, to the bottom. Well, you got the middle, and the middle is the wholesalers in the middle of it. So it's slow to get the sand to the bottom of it. So getting a product to the market today through the 3-tier system is extremely, extremely difficult. I'll give you an example without naming names, okay? If I had $1 for every time I walked into a distributorship and said, presenting a new brand or beer for them to handle, the first thing they're going to tell me is, well, you need to bring me chain store authorizations. Well, no kidding. You know, tell me something I haven't heard before, right? Well, we know that. Now we have distributors, true story, where we get the chain store authorizations, in many cases, mandated chain store authorizations, and they still refuse to bring it. They'll come back to me and they'll put up another roadblock And I've just had this happen. And like we had an H-E-B come in with a number of stores with mandated 15 packs of a certain flavor that we sell, and the distributor wouldn't do it. He said, no, you have to have 20 mandated placements. And I'm going, how can we get to 20 if you won't do the 7 or the 10? If we get the 10, we can prove it sells, and to get to the 20. And I'm going, really?
You could sell a pallet of, right, with 10 authorizations pretty quickly.
Well, you sell 10 million cases of beer, you can't sell a couple pallets?
Yeah.
Really? Out of the thing? And so I guess where I'm going with this is that it's extremely difficult with the middle tier today to get anything through the system. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. But
is that, I mean, do you think that's mostly a function of distributors just getting bigger and consolidating?
that's part of it, yeah. But you've got brand managers, if you will, that have not only, used to be 4 or 5 suppliers, now they've got 12, 15, 16, 20 vendors that they manage. Now think about that. You got 20 vendors you manage. How many working days in a month? There's 20 working days. So how much time are they going to spend on a brand that you got? That's why it's so important to have salespeople out on the streets. I actually had, this is a true story, I actually had a major distributor tell me, oh, we'll deliver it for you, but you got to sell it.
Yeah.
But we'll deliver it for you. And I said, well, why don't you give me the keys to your truck, and I'll just deliver it for you, collect money for it, come back in and put it in a deposit. Anything else I can do for you?
I mean, that's the but on on their side, they're struggling with SKU efficiency. They see that the top 20% makes 80% of their profits, and I feel like distributors took on a lot more brands than they should have before COVID, because craft was hotter then and new brands were emerging, and so they just wanted to grab whatever they could to keep it away from their competitor. And then now, after COVID, it seems like they're shedding SKUs, and it's almost indiscriminate. I mean that's the reality that I'm seeing.
Well, you're right, but part of my job when I was at Glazers was to look at new brands. That's what I did a lot of times that come through, and we had our own internal guidelines. I know this was 20 years ago or so on it, but I think what distributors need to look at, if they don't, is the viability, not the short term, but the long term viability of the supplier that they're looking at. Are they viable? Are they going to be here? What's their ultimate goal? I mean, you've probably seen it when somebody opens up a craft brewer. How many vendors you have that want to build it, flip it, and disappear? Right. I mean, you talk about it all the time on your show. You have people come in here like that. Right. And just the other day, you had Hulk Hogan in here that said he had a vested interest in the business.
Yeah. Who am I to tell Hulk Hogan no? No, but you make a good point. I mean, let me put it this way. If you're just doing a list of SKUs by gross profit for a year, and you just go and cut all the bottom ones, you're not taking into account those which can grow,
right? And
they might be very well backed, and they're not going to disappear,
right?
And so I could see that point. And then there's also the issue of what they used to call the feta cheese problem, meaning that for a grocery store, like, feta cheese doesn't sell that much. It's a very low moving SKU. However, if you don't have it, then you won't get high dollar people into the store. Right. So you have to have it. And that, I think we need to, I think distributors, they're swinging far toward cutting SKUs right now, but you have to consider also that you don't want to get rid of the feta cheese. Do you think the beer guys have taken too much pricing, or is it okay?
No, it's too much. I think that's one of the major issues with craft beers. They went too high, too fast, and now they're paying the price for it. And our discussions with wholesalers, we're doing our annual ABPs, is like everybody else is now. Our intention is to keep pricing as is, and many of the wholesalers will tell you that they agree, that the price has gone too, and you can see the results. The consumer, especially they're buying larger packs, like our fastest growing, or Altstadt's fastest growing package is a 15-pack right now because the value. You can pay what a 12-pack would go for and get 3 extra beers out of it. And they're looking at that and they're saying, hey, this is a better deal than a 6-pack as it is now. I think once you break that $10 price on 6-packs, you can tell the difference what it does, especially in this economic environment that we've experienced the last couple of years with it.
Right. You know, one thing that I learned from, Joe Huggins and Scotty Heckles, especially Scotty Heckle, whenever anything trend changed that you weren't expecting, he's like, the number one thing to go to first is price.
Right.
Always. It's always price. A $10 6-pack, that sounds outrageous to me, who's been around a while.
Well, look at these prices we just talked about.
It was $4.20.
Yeah. Look at that.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
What a great. Let me show that to you. Look at that.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that one.
That is good. And also, you brought me Warsteiner has a win in Florida. This is from Beer Business Day. Wow, that's our old logo.
Yeah.
I forgot about that logo.
Yeah.
Warsteiner has a win in Florida, September 5th, 2008. Wow. And then this article is
Lunch with me. You and I got together.
Oh, this is from June 4th, 2009. A lunch with Warsteiner's Geoff Westapher.
Yeah.
I do vaguely remember that lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it was, how long ago?
15 years ago?
Good Lord.
This 16 years ago in this?
Yeah. One of the things I enjoyed was your Beer Business Unplugged.
Oh, I got
your blog.
Well, when I started that, if you recall, I got hold of you. And I was telling you what I was going to do. And the only comment you said, well, good luck, and I hope you have thick skin.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, all the comments that came, seriously, only less than 5 were negative. And of that, 3 of them were not in the industry.
Right.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was hard work. I wrote 400 blogs in 8 years.
Is it still up?
It's still up. I haven't written it since the end of 20 on purpose.
It's worth going to look at. There were some great old stories in there. I loved looking at that. And I love reading about the old beer business, like in my dad's time. I mean, you're younger than my dad, sorry. But I mean,
well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
At this point, yeah.
No, but.
Well, I'm sorry, your dad passed away years ago.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if he were alive, he'd be shocked at what the beer industry looks like today. Just, because I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but my mother's family were Pepsi bottlers here in San Antonio, and my dad's family were beer wholesalers in Houston, and they had San Antonio for a while. And so, at the time, they're like, why don't we just combine the trucks? And there was no way that was going to happen. Pepsi wasn't going to let it happen. And got, Coke, that would absolutely never happen. And, now it's not as big a thing anymore. I mean, the largest Coke bottler is a beer wholesaler. And I don't know if they're selling anything on the same truck yet, but
it's sort of like when you and I were talking when the Bud Light Gate happened.
Yeah.
And you published that this will blow away in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What you originally said is you nod your head and smile.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent you a note and I said, it's going to take 1.5 generations.
Oh, Jesus, Geoff.
For this thing to go away.
1.5 generations.
Yeah.
I think we're somewhere, the truth is we're somewhere in between.
Well, everybody's saying it's getting better, but it's on top of how bad they lost last year.
Right.
On it, so.
It does. I do feel like the domestic premium, or you can include Mexican imports now, they're so big, but those drinkers are finicky. They're very loyal to their brand, but if that brand screws up, everybody leaves. Just like what happened with Schlitz.
I've always, even when I was teaching, I would tell them it's probably the most affordable consumer product anybody can buy. Is a beer. You go into how many people can buy a $2,000 Brooks Brothers suit or $100,000 Mercedes? Not many.
Yeah.
But you can go into a bar and sit at the bar and buy the most expensive beer, and that label says something about you.
Right.
And why is that? It's because it's marketing, how people perceive themselves in drinking that particular beer.
Yeah.
It's real simple.
You know, I think a lot of us have forgotten those kind of basic tenets. Beer is a badge. Remember, you've heard that before.
Yeah, sure.
Beer is a badge, labels out.
Right.
And, yeah.
It's image, how you perceive yourself.
Yeah. Boy, that is good.
Well, Altstadt uses the best quality products. They all come from Germany. All of the hops, all of the malted barley. For example, the culture Altstadt makes, the water, as you may remember, comes out of through the well, reverse osmosis. So all the minerals are removed from the water, and if we're making a Kolsch, we use the same mineral water content that's used in cologne.
Mm.
So it's put back into the tanks. Then we use the same malts. We use the same hops that come from cologne. All the equipment's German. So unless you're in Cologne, the Kolsch you drink or the lager you drink that Altstadt makes is as close as you're going to get to a real German beer without being there.
Mm.
And
That's cool.
They go through no expense to do that.
Mm.
So the idea is to bring a world-class beer to the consuming public at a very attractive price, which they do.
Yeah.
And that's why they've been successful with it.
Yeah. Good German stock.
Good German
Where are you
stock.
from? You from Florida or somewhere?
No, Fort Worth. My
I
family,
mean, that's Florida to me.
my family's been here since the late 1800s. They came from Tacoma.
Oh,
Tacoma, yeah. And it was Comanche Indians. My great grandmother, Comanche. Yeah,
Really? Wow.
That's why I fit so well in Fredericksburg. German and Comanches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And a few Apaches ran through there too
Yeah,
at some
they
point.
did. Yeah.
Well, this has been so good. I love sitting here with you, Geoff.
Oh, I can tell you stories all day long.
Well, I think we need to do this like a couple times a year, right?
Yeah.
If you're in town.
I'm always in San Antonio. It's my favorite city.
Mine too.
It's absolutely my favorite city.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you, Jeff, for being here.
Anytime. Enjoy
All
it.
right. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.